Welcome to Central Missouri Alumni Stories. I'm your host, Corey Bittner. On this show, we'll talk with alumni from the University of Central Missouri and ask them to tell their stories. We'll talk to them about what led them to UCM, memories from Warrensburg, their professional careers, and what comes next. Okay, thank you. So today our guest is Lisa Qualls.
Hello, everybody.
Lisa is a senior account executive with Proactive Solutions.
Right.
Lisa, thanks for being here today.
My pleasure. We
are really excited to do this. I know when I kind of called you and told you about the idea of what we wanted to try to do here and why we wanted to do it, I appreciate that you said, I'm on board,
Absolutely.
Sign me up, where 100%. Do I need to be and when?
You got it.
So thank you very much for being here. Again, this is our first episode. The inaugural episode, so you will
what an honor.
Yeah, that's right. You will be cemented in history of the
that's
show.
Awesome.
But really, the goal and the focus here is just to bring, kind of as you and I have talked about, off air, is just to bring more engagement to the University of Central Missouri and the alumni community, because there's a huge number of alumni in the Kansas City area.
So like 60,000, right?
60,000.
That's 60,000 strong. Go Mules, go Jennies, woo!
That's right. And there's a lot of them that have a lot of stories and interesting stories to tell.
Absolutely.
And that's really kind of what led us to where we are today. So with this being the first episode, please, if anybody has any feedback, suggestions, ideas, don't hesitate to reach out. We'll kind of go over our contact info here at the end, but we'll go ahead and get started.
Fantastic.
All right. So Lisa, first off, as far as your kind of personal background, where did you grow up? Where are you from?
I actually grew up in Blue Springs, Missouri. I'm a proud Wildcat at Blue Springs High School. My parents actually still live in the same house they brought me home to as a baby. So
Is that right?
I am a born and raised Kansas Citian and very proud of that fact. So when I was going through high school, I looked at various universities, and I actually chose Southwest Missouri State to start off with. But I have to say, I'm so incredibly proud of the fact that I finished at UCM.
Sure.
At Southwest had a lot of great things to offer as well, but UCM really taught me a lot about strategy and communication and writing skills, and gave me a lot of fundamentals that have been very important throughout my career.
Okay, so you grew up in Kansas City, born and raised.
City, yep.
Went to, so you started at, now Missouri State now.
Yes,
I know they've all changed names.
Thanks for mentioning it. Yes, everything's changed names since I went to school. Guess how old I am?
No. But so you went to school, and how long were you in Springfield then?
I was in Springfield from 89 to 91.
Okay.
And then started at UCM in 92 and finished in 94.
Okay. Had you already established a field of study when you made the change to
Funny
Warrensburg?
enough, I had started off with an accounting degree, all because I got second place in a math bee in 6th grade. And I was told by a family friend, you should become an accountant. Okay. So I told myself I needed to be an accountant. So for a year and a half, I suffered through that. I got into a tax accounting class where I finally said, okay, enough's enough. This is not going to work for me. And quickly changed majors to communication. So I had made that change while I was at Springfield.
Okay.
And their communication department was more around management and marketing. And then when I made the shift to UCM, their communication and PR department was much more strategic and around writing and long-term thinking and how it works within a business organization, driving ROI and real business decision thinking as it relates to how is someone going to hear the story, how are they going to react to the story, and what are they going to do as a result. And so those the kind of, when I talk about fundamentals that have worked with me for a very diverse career, which I'm sure we'll get into later, have been very critical in developing the professional that I've become.
Okay, no, that's fantastic. When you were, I guess after making that move, when you moved back to Kansas City, out of curiosity, did you live on campus?
No, I never lived on campus at UCM. I was a commuter student. Driving back and forth from Blue Springs to Warrensburg every Tuesday and Thursday. Actually, funny enough, my husband and I, that's how we developed our relationship, was doing that drive every Tuesday and Thursday from Blue Springs to Warrensburg and back. We drove together when we were dating, and we had lots of long, deep conversations that didn't scare him away, funny enough.
Sure.
And we've been married, it'll be 25 years this November, actually.
Well, congrats.
So he got his teaching degree from UCM.
Okay.
And then I got my PR degree from UCM. So we're both two proud UCM alumni.
That's fantastic. My fiance and I are to be married in October, and she was also a UCM. She went to school in Warrensburg for her undergrad.
Fantastic.
Yep.
Well, congratulations on
Thank
that.
you.
If
Thank
you
you.
need any advice, let me know.
Yeah.
She's always right. That's the first thing.
That's right. I've already learned that one, and we're not married yet.
Exactly.
Okay, good. So you ended up finishing with the degree in public relations.
Correct. So I had a degree in public relations with a minor in speech communications.
Okay. And why PR specifically, out of curiosity?
Well, initially, I thought I would get into sports PR. So I'm a huge sports fan, still today a big sports fan. And so that was my initial goal, was to get into sports PR, hence the degree. At the time, however, I actually was working for Sprint, a local telecom company here in Kansas City, and my career ended up taking that path. But I still have a love for sports PR. In fact, the PR department now currently offers a sports PR class every summer that I'm incredibly jealous of, and I've asked Dr. Horn if I could actually enroll back into the university so I can take the class. So it's great to know the university has stayed focused in that realm, but that is why I chose the degree, was to get into sports PR at first.
Okay, gotcha. That's good. Now, since you didn't, well, I guess one question that I was going to have for you is, from your time in Warrensburg, well, I know you never lived in Warrensburg per se, I just wanted to see, is there any one memory that jumps out from your time there that was memorable, one of your favorite things to look back on?
Right, I have to say, while I was going to UCM, I didn't get to participate socially. I was commuting, but I did go to Warrensburg for some fun weekends while I was at school in Springfield. Okay. So I did have some social experiences there, but I have to say the one thing that was really an awesome memory for me was I was in, it was a capstone program for the PR department. And the professor at the time charged the students with trying to get communication from someone you never thought you could generate communication from. Like try to get a letter or get some kind of response by poking the bear or by enticing them or incensing them or something. So when I was getting married, I was getting married in November before I graduated in December. So he thought it would be awesome to show the class that you can actually get the President of the United States to acknowledge a request. Okay. And he did that. So I have a letter from the Clintons congratulating me on our marriage.
Really? That's
so that was really awesome. And it was great for the class to learn because he kind of talked through the process of how you go about engaging through your congressman or your senator and getting those kind of things going. And,
so what was the process for you?
For him, I did. He did it. You can go through your senator or your congressman. If you have someone that's like having a 50th wedding anniversary, if you have someone that's done something significant for the community and you want a letter of acknowledgement, or you want the House to acknowledge it officially in the record, you can write your local congressman or your senator to have them do that.
Interesting.
You can do that at the state level as well. You may have better luck at the state level than you will at the federal level, but I did not know either. I mean, it's one more thing I learned from going to UCM.
That's right. You ended up with a letter from the president.
You can, yeah.
All right,
congratulating me on my nuptials. It was pretty cool.
That's good. That's good. So, your when you graduated from UCM, what was your first job out of college?
Actually, I was already working. Okay. And that was with Sprint, and I worked in
so you were with Sprint while you were going to school.
So I was working full-time, going to school full-time, and raising a child at the time.
Oh my gosh.
Who's now 27 years old.
Oh, wow.
Again, showing my age.
You must be proud, though.
Yeah, and he's going to Warrensburg right now.
Is that right?
Yeah, so he got his associate's degree right out of college, or right out of high school, and then has exploring the finer things of life and is now going back to get his 4-year degree. And he's 1 year away. So
excellent. Good for him.
I'm very proud of him. What was your question?
So you stayed with Sprint after you graduated?
Yeah. So I stayed with Sprint and actually ended up having a 16-year career at Sprint, and a very diverse one. So when I was at school and when I graduated, I was in the relay services for the deaf. So there was a little office out in Independence, Missouri. This was before Skype and video computers. Once again, I'm not young. I'm young at heart. And so what we did is we literally would type what the deaf person, or we would type what the hearing person was saying and read what the deaf person was typing. So we would help facilitate the communication between the hearing world and the deaf world. So if you were to call the doctor's office, the deaf person would be typing. I would be reading that to the doctor's office, scheduling the appointment, and then typing back what the doctor's office was saying.
What a neat role.
So I can type really fast. It's truly the one skill I have in life.
Is that right? That's it. I think you have a lot more than that, but that's
back
good.
then I could type almost like 75, 80 words a minute. I don't know if I can type this fast now, but
oh my gosh.
Yeah, I would have to do conference calls where you'd have multiple people talking, and I'd have to like indicate the switch in people, and it was a fascinating job. So from there, then I went into the training organization. I had some training background. I was a professional cheerleader at one time, so facilitating learning and being on stage was something that I was quite comfortable with. And then from there, went on to customer change management and product marketing.
Okay.
And then just continued to move, and where I finally ended up with working directly for the chief network officer of the company, kind of serving as a pseudo deputy chief of staff, putting together board of director materials. Really, that was the one role that I would say had the most public relations association to it.
Okay.
All the jobs I had, I definitely leveraged and leaned on the skills I gained throughout college. But that job in particular was during a very difficult time in Sprint's history. It was during the Nextel merger, and things weren't quite going to plan. And so having to work through the constituents of the employees, the executives, and the board of directors, and the stockholders, and understanding those distinct audiences and building communication plans accordingly, and working with the different communications groups, the legal teams, the investor relations teams. A lot of what I learned from my days at UCM came into play, very much so.
Excellent. Well, that's good to hear, because that's one of the next questions that I wanted to ask you was, can you sort of point to an example of a role, of a job, whatever it might be, where you could say, this is part of where the university helped prep me for my career, and it sounds like
that job for sure, because the stakes were incredibly high, and the pressure was great. I cried a lot during those days.
Yeah.
But, when you're learning, it can be painful, especially when you're, as I've grown more mature, the thing I've come to really appreciate is embracing the uncomfortable during growth and learning time. So your biology is one that will fight anything that's new because it wants to stay comfortable. That means it's surviving quite comfortably.
It resists.
It resists. And so that position in particular, and ones that have come since then, I quickly became much more aware of how my body would resist things, and then how to work through that, and how to embrace being uncomfortable. So I've always told people, you got to learn how to be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Right.
Because that's the only way you're growing and learning and exceeding. And so that job taught me a lot about how to overcome. Every week I would come into a new set of circumstances that would be uncomfortable.
Wow.
And we would have to overcome them. But from a UCM and PR perspective, I will say the common theme to every job one has is the need to be able to communicate, and to communicate effectively. And the way you do that is, one, by listening first and being observant and watching, not just listening for the verbal, but watching for the nonverbal. I had a great class at UCM that was kinetics communication. That was much more about the nonverbal, and that was a life changer for me. I always thought communication was about talking,
right,
and speaking clearly, when really that's not even the half of communication. Really, it's more about the learning and the nonverbal and the leaning in and the leaning out and the eyeballs where they go, and reading all of that in a dialogue to truly understand what's occurring between people. And that's the recurring skill set I have to say was the most beneficial thing I learned during my time at UCM, that I use every day. It's not just about a job, it's not just about a project. I use it every day in every conversation I'm involved in.
That's great. So if it's learning how to communicate properly, and whether it sounds like it's in the business world in your career, or at home with your family.
Absolutely. It transcends all aspects of my life, for sure.
That's that's great. That's a valuable skill that unfortunately not everybody learns. Right? They're just not taught. Right. They don't have the moment of realization.
I've had lots of ongoing education as well since my time at UCM, and I would say that's also a critical component to success, is building upon what you learn by learning more every day.
Yes.
To always be in motion of learning. I had another great mentor that if you're not learning, you're not earning. So
that's good. I like that. I haven't heard that before. If you're not learning, you're not earning. That's good.
Right. So always be learning. And but that the understanding communication in its whole has been critical. I would also say one more thing, and I think this is where the department has really excelled in itself, is the strategic aspects of communication and PR, specifically and understanding the long-term play, understanding the long-term implications of any communication plan, any business plan for that matter, and that it's not just about what's going to happen today, tomorrow, but what's the long-term effects of any actions that's in play. How does that play into a return on investment? And in the business world, those financial metrics are critical, and understanding how those partner with communication strategy and planning is really where the sweet spot of value is. And I think that's where UCM really excels today with their program. In fact, they were the first program to be the first undergraduate program approved for a business credited school, which is pretty impressive. They're one of
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they're one of 14 MBA MBA programs that have PR undergraduate class that's been approved by PRSA as part of their MBA program. And they just are now offering an advertising minor in partnership with the marketing department, which also differentiates itself. So I think what I'm most proud of is not just what the school was when I attended, but more about what it's become since then.
Yes, and it sounds like not only the university, but your program and your degree specifically. You've watched that transform into what it is today.
The public relations major, I think, is one that's probably underrated at the university and needs to be much more heavily promoted. I'm working with right now on the advisory board of the Harvard College, and specifically with the PR department, to try to get that communication out that says, this is not just a stellar program in the region, it's a stellar program in the country. And if you are at all considering, or your children are considering, any kind of communications, social media, digital media, storytelling, any of the buzzwords of the programs that are being offered today, the public relations program at UCM needs to be at the top of their list of consideration. It is a nationally recognized program that is just creating great value for the students that are in it. And it's very exciting to see the difference that they're making in the businesses, such as yourself. You were a PR degree holder,
I was going to say, I can co-sign on what you're saying, because I also was a lot of people don't know that about me, is that I was also a graduate of the PR program.
Right. And now look at him, guys. He's a co-owner of a wealth advisory company.
That's right. Everybody assumes finance. Now, obviously, I've always had a natural interest there, right? And have, the continuing education and the licenses and everything else that I've learned. But I believe that there was a solid foundation that was built from what I studied when I was in college that led me to be able to, be what I perceive as successful at this point in my career with what I'm doing. And
I think that's what makes the PR degree so unique, in that where a lot of degrees, I don't want to say are limiting, but they're so specific and you go so deep. And really, when you come out of school, if you don't go into something right then with that emphasis, you may struggle a little bit. Where with the PR degree, the benefit I see is that it provides you those foundational skills, those fundamentals that are going to translate into any career path you choose once you graduate. You will never not use communication skills.
Exactly.
You will always need strategic thinking. You will always need to understand some basic financials and how things piece together. And those are the things you learn at UCM in the PR department.
Yep, that's great. And tell me a little bit more about your current role now that you're in.
So after my time at Sprint, I then was an entrepreneur, and then I went to IBM, and now I am with a business partner. It's a value-added reseller. We work with companies like IBM, HP, Dell EMC, with large enterprise customers like Home Depot, O'Reilly's, Quick Trip, Blue Cross and Blue Shield out of Kansas City here locally, to help them with their IT data center needs. So we go in and evaluate. Again, the listening skills are important. You go in and you listen to what your customers' needs are. You help them formulate the requirements of what's going to deliver on their outcomes that they expect. And then we help that transaction and implementation of what those solutions might be.
Nice. That's pretty interesting.
It is. It's For me, growing up in Sprint, I, like you, have a financial interest. Mine ended up being surprisingly technology. I did not know that at the time, but I had an opportunity thrown my way where I kind of had to say yes, and I'm forever grateful I did, because I ended up working with these phenomenal engineers and learning this whole new language, and have built an entire career off of it.
That's excellent.
So I love what I do. I love working with engineers. I love working with emerging technology and staying on the cutting edge of what's coming next, and helping my clients understand how that drives business outcomes for them. That's
great. That's fantastic to hear. Now, with that being said, part of what I kind of wanted to incorporate into the show is, what led you to UCM, your time there, what you learned, how it's helped you in your career. But naturally, right, so our business, where we work with a lot of people for sort of long-term planning, right, and thinking about transitions in life. And
we've been doing a lot of that in my household.
Is that right? Okay, well, perfect. And
circle back to the early themes of this interview, where age is...
No. Because I thought it was interesting. I was thinking about how, because I've interviewed candidates as our team here has grown and we've hired more people.
Sure.
When people ask this sort of generic question sometimes of, call it generic, call it what you will, but where do you see yourself in 5 years, right? That's a question that I realize, I don't know if anybody really asks you that once you get a job.
Right.
I think that's something
because all you're doing is just trying to get a job.
Yeah, exactly. Let's take that and apply it to your situation now. So rather than, 5 years, what does, in your career now, it sounds like it's going very well, you're thriving in that, but presumably long term, you don't want to work forever.
Right.
What does life after work look like for you?
Well, so for my husband and I, again, our kids are now, we're empty nesters. So 27 and 23, our daughter and son. So we've been talking a lot about this as we go through this kind of transition. So we've recently developed a 10-year plan. And so it's, where do we want to be 10 years from now? Is there any key milestones or things that we want to accomplish during that 10 years that we need to think about? So for me, and he's a school teacher, so he'll be retiring within that 10 years. So that's what's kind of gave us that milestone marker.
Makes sense.
For me, I'd like to think I would be ready for retirement in 10 years. I don't know if it'll be so much a financial concern as it will be am I really ready to not do work anymore? That's hard for me to get my head wrapped around right now because I love what I do so much.
Yep.
But I also think about what other opportunities that might present to me. So I think about potentially becoming a professor and getting into the university. I love teaching others. So it's like, is that something I want to think about? Yeah. So if that's something I want to do, well, there's things I need to do in order to prepare for that. So it's kind of, I like the long-term thinking because it gives you pause to think about what are the short-term steps I'm going to need to get to the long-term plan. So defining ambition, not just financial, but lifestyle, family, all of that has been something I've subscribed to for the last probably 10, 15 years now. And so now getting to define this next 10 years is, up until just this last probably 2 years, it was all about what do I do career-wise and what kind of money do I want to make and what kind of social identity do I want to build. And it was kind of more probably about just my family and how I take care of them and how my husband takes care of them and how how we take care of each other. But when you start looking down the road and you don't have those kids anymore to always be top of mind, it's like, okay, what else can we do?
Yep.
It really opens you up to community impact as well as the legacy you're going to leave behind. So that's a lot of the conversations we're having as well, is not just are we financially ready,
right?
But what is it we ultimately want to leave behind or make an impact, and are we in motion to do those things in the years that we have the ability to do it?
Yes. Yeah, that's great.
So,
You're thinking
so it's thinking holistically.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, like I said, teaching's one thing, how to be actively involved in the community. This is one of the reasons I was so quick to say yes when you called, because I think a big missed opportunity in my husband and I's life is that here we're both UCM alum, and like we said, there's 60,000 of us in the region.
Yes.
And are we really participating in that community? There's a lot of richness to be provided there, And when I say richness, I don't mean that from a monetary perspective. I mean richness in that fulfilling your life socially, spiritually, connected, however you want to define richness to yourself. But how, by this community not being more activated and working alongside one another and having that sense of pride that some other universities might have, I think we're all missing out. So how do we start getting in motion an excitement and a conversation that brings this community together, helps elevate our livelihood, but also elevate the university's brand recognition and awareness to get that next generation of students in there that benefits the whole alumni community as a whole. So that's why I was so excited to hear that you're doing this podcast, because I think this is one of many things that we as a community can start to participate in to build that awareness and to help one another.
Yep, no, I totally agree. And obviously that's one of the reasons that we had this discussion to begin with anyway.
Right.
But I also would add to your point about having that more engaged community in the area is also for students that are in school.
Sure.
It helps to benefit them too, because
You bet.
It sounds like from what you said, you, like me, have benefited from having mentors and having people that have helped and having guides along the way. You had to learn a lot for yourself, but it's helpful to have someone there to help you out.
You bet. Mm-hmm.
And if we can use this as a platform to connect students with alumni also,
Right.
Again, that's going to be great for everyone.
It's a win-win, right? Because it helps
Exactly.
the student have more of an accelerated onboarding into their career life.
Yes.
It helps those, more mature professionals have access to this new way of thinking, new energy, and really some brilliant kids. I've had the great fortune of guest lecturing at the university and meeting a lot of these students. And like I said, having, being a mother of young 20s, I have them around the house quite a bit. And I'm fascinated. I love what this generation is bringing to the table. I know they get hammered on a lot. I think it's unfair criticism. I think we all forget what it's like to be in our early 20s. And to me, the generations are all much more common than we tend to want to believe. And so I see this generation bringing to the table a global awareness, a much more sense of urgency to different items, be it global warming or how to communicate in real time through social media.
Yes.
There's just a more sense of urgency. I would totally agree. There's probably less patience, but I think that's a good thing. In a lot of ways. I think sometimes we take too long to get things in motion, and I think that's another benefit of this generation. So to me, the benefits for the professional probably outweigh the benefits to the student, in my humble opinion. But to me, it's a win-win all the way around. I think, and getting the Alumni Foundation and getting this great number of people who have a common background and to me a pride in where they got their degree from. I think it's an opportunity that we all need to be taking advantage of.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
Oh, well, thank you.
So I don't think there's anything that I need to add.
I stumbled through that a little bit.
I don't know if there's anything that I need to add. Okay, so next I'm going to reference my piece of paper here. I have kind of a...
you're going to take a quick drink of water.
Yeah, no, please. What we have next here is the kind of, the fun round, or what I want to go through with you here. Obviously here we are in the studio in my office. So
right.
Falcon Wealth Advisors is the business that I, along with my...
With a beautiful table.
Thank you. This was made by... I know that everybody watching can't see the table, but this was made by a few friends of mine that are also graduates from UCM.
Awesome.
Believe it or not.
Even better. Wow, it's just a full circle here.
They started They started a successful woodworking business 2 years ago. Coincidentally, today's the anniversary, but that's all on the side.
Oh, wow.
Yep, and they've done really well for themselves. But here in our studio,
serendipity.
Right? That's right. Here in our studio, again, we're utilizing the resources that we have here. Falcon Wealth Advisors, like I said, is the business that I and my business partner co-founded in 2016, along with the rest of our team, and we've been growing. So we wanted to have a segment of the show that's sponsored by Falcon Wealth Advisors.
Oh, fantastic.
So we have what we came up with. What I'm calling the Mule Minute.
Okay.
And what the Mule Minute is, I'm going to just rattle off.
Or the Jenny Jam.
Or the Jenny Jam. I like that too. I was thinking about how I can incorporate that. So
that was right off the top of the head,
That was pretty good. That was pretty good. With some time, I can only imagine what you could come up with. So what I want to do here is just rattle through. I have about 10 questions that I'm going to try to get through in 60 seconds. I don't have a timer or stopwatch.
Oh, Lord. Okay.
But so the idea here is just for you to, I'm just
First
curious to hear
off
off the top of your head.
Oh, this may require some editing, but we'll go for it.
That's okay. So if you're ready, we will go ahead and get started.
You go.
All right, so to get us started, favorite food?
Oh, gosh. Tacos.
Favorite destination?
The Lake of the Ozarks. So that was something we've done the last 2 years is we bought a lake at the Lake of the Ozarks. So
excellent. Retire when?
Right now the plan is at 59, but more realistically probably sometime in my 60s.
Favorite sport?
Baseball. Softball. Baseball, softball.
Are you a Chiefs fan?
Yes. Royals fan. Sporting Kansas City fan.
Okay. Chiefs record this year?
There's what I want it to be, and there's what I think it'll be. I'm going to say 11-5.
Okay. Stocks or bonds?
Stocks. I mean, unless you're like 60. I mean, you could have some bonds in there. Some bonds, but be aggressive. Go for the win.
Kansas or Missouri?
Oh, Missouri.
Okay.
NYZ, baby. All the way.
Favorite way to spend your free time?
With my husband.
What technology are you most optimistic about?
Probably quantum computing.
Okay. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Sports PR.
Okay. All right, fair. And lastly, what is the number one piece of advice that you'd give someone?
I think I said it, I talked about it earlier, but it's embracing the uncomfortability and getting comfortable with that. Because if you're not uncomfortable, you're not learning and growing and becoming your best self.
That's good. If you're not learning, you're not earning.
You're
right?
not. That's right. There's
That
something
was
up.
pretty
If
good.
you're not learning, you're not earning.
No, that's good though. But get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Right.
I like that. Well, good. Well, thanks for participating. You did a great job. See,
Thank you.
nothing to stress about.
No, this was great. This was great. Thank you.
Of course. So then I really just have one last question. Something that we have a different show where we've talked to each other and other guests about, and our team members here talk about too. Just the nature of what we do as a business. What is it's about a lesson on money. What is the first memory that you have, or one of the more valuable lessons that you can remember that someone taught you about money?
That credit cards are the devil.
Is that right? Credit cards are the devil.
I didn't. No one told me that. I learned that the hard way,
Okay.
not once but twice. But that, credit cards can get you in trouble in a hurry, especially when you're young and you don't have that ability to think long term and interest rates and compounded money, and you're not. You may have heard those terms, but you haven't lived those yet.
Right.
And credit cards can kill you quickly. So stay away from them if at all possible.
That's really good. I believe that Albert Einstein is credited with saying, "He who understands compound interest benefits from it. He who doesn't, it works against," or something along those lines. I'm drawing a blank on the quote now. So anyway.
You can edit that in later.
Yeah, we'll try that again next time. All right. So again, lastly, I appreciate you taking the time to come on here today. I think
thank you.
No, thank you. I appreciate kind of talking through things, kind of getting this show up and running, right? Getting it off the ground. You talked earlier about spend less time planning and more time doing, right? Sometimes you just need to get started. And that's what we're doing here today. We're obviously both very enthusiastic and excited about the prospects for this. We're excited about re-engaging the alumni community in the Kansas City area, and ultimately how everyone will benefit from that. So please, if anybody has any suggestions for topics that we ought to discuss, guests that anybody, whomever it is, might think would be a great guest to come on this show, or any general feedback or criticism, I won't take it personally. So
nor will I.
Yeah, so please feel free to reach out. You can find me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is @CoreyBittnerKC. And if anybody has any questions for Lisa, or would like to get in contact with you, what's your preferred method?
LinkedIn.com/Lisa Qualls, or on Twitter @LQualls4444.
Okay, perfect. So there will be more to come, more episodes, more information. But thanks for taking the time to watch, and I hope that everyone has a great week.